Firstly, our group will start with the introduction of Vietnam. ASEAN was established on 8 August 1967 in Bangkok, Thailand. Vietnam is one of the countries that joined ASEAN on 28 July 1995 after Brunei Darussalam joined ASEAN on 7 January 1984. Then it was followed by Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia, with the total 10 ASEAN member states. Vietnam is located at the eastern edge of mainland Southeast Asia and it covers 311,699 square kilometers with population over 97 million population. Vietnam is one of the countries that famous with Asian history, diverse culture, and natural landscape. For Vietnam history, the first royal government in Vietnam is known as Hong Bang Dynasty. On 1887, Vietnam became a part of French Indochina, while on 1954 they gained independence from the first Indochina War that happened on 1945 until 1954. On 1954 until 1975, Vietnam War happened, and the last one is from 1975 until 1976, unification of North and South Vietnam was happening. Now let's take a look at the political background of Vietnam. The form of government is communist state and the head of state is president. The current president of Vietnam is Vo Van Trong, while prime minister is the head of government. The current prime minister is Pham Minh Chinh. The legislature of Vietnam is unicameral on national assemblies and the judiciary is based on the Supreme Court. Next, let's move on to economic background of Vietnam. Vietnam is known as one of the countries that was once recognized as poor. In order to stop this economic crisis from continuing, Vietnam once recognized a campaign named Doi Moi. Doi Moi was a name given to carry out political and economic reform of Vietnam. With the establishment of Doi Moi, the economy of Vietnam has changed from common economy to socialist-oriented market economy. For the social background of Vietnam, the current population is 99.47 million, and Vietnam is also one of the countries that is known as a multi-ethnic country with over 54 distinct groups. Each of the ethnic group has its own uniqueness. For example, each ethnic has a different language, lifestyle, and cultural heritage. Kin ethnic group is the larger group with 85.7%, followed by Thai group 1.9%. Vietnam is officially an atheist country, and there are three major religions in Vietnam, which is Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. Furthermore, the official language of Vietnam is Vietnamese language, except for a group of divergent rural dialects spoken between Hue and Vinh. In cultural aspect, there are many celebrations, ceremonies, and festivals that will be celebrated by Vietnamese. Among the celebrations is the Lunar New Year, the Mid-Autumn Festival, and many more. Not only that, there are the social beliefs and customs in Vietnam, which is Vietnamese people really care about the importance of family and clan, also known as Dong Po in Vietnam. The clan is very important social unit in the country. The tradition of clan members living together in long house, and it is not surprising if there are 3 to 4 generations of a family living together in one house. Other than that, Vietnam has their own traditional costume, which is Ao Gio Ling, Ao Tu Tan, Ao Chang, and Ao Ba Ba. Plus, Vietnam is associated with a rich tradition of dance and music. The country has nearly 50 national music instruments.
The first advantage Vietnam being a communist country is that the government are controlled by the Communist Party, which is also known as one-party system. One-party system helps Vietnam keep its political stable and there will be no huge shake-ups every election cycle. This happened because there is no opposition party in their country, so the government is stronger and cannot be removed by power. Besides, it helps with long-term thinking related to the country. Instead of thinking about how to overcome their opponent, they can think beyond their strategies for the next election. Nevertheless, in Vietnam, a country ruled by the communists, politicians are allowed and can be truly professional civil servants rather than well-informed amateurs. The second advantage is that they can build a strong army. This is proven by the internet. The sources say that in year 2023, Vietnam is ranked 19 of the countries considered for the annual Global Firepower Review. Every country was evaluated based on its prolonged offensive and defensive military campaigns. Vietnam also has been once claimed as the most professional, battle-hardened, and heavily trained armies in Southeast Asia. Refers to Vietnam War, the US Army had superior conventional weapons, but they were ineffective against Vietnam, a country that was not industrialized, and an army that employed guerrilla tactics and used the dense jungle as a cover. For the third advantage is relationship. Vietnam, being a communist country, allowed them to have a good relationship with strong countries. For instance, the comprehensive strategic partnership and highest diplomatic designation with China, India, Russia, and most recently, South Korea. In a term such as strategic partner involved as a sharing understanding between two or more states that involve in the nature of threats, in the environment, and the place of their collective power in helping mitigate the threat. Meanwhile, many of Vietnam's strategic partners are US allies, such as Japan, Australia, and United Kingdom. Vietnam is now considered to be potential ally of the United States, especially in the geopolitical context of the territorial dispute in the South China Sea and in containment of China expansionism. Meanwhile, the disadvantages of Vietnam being a communist country is that the restriction of human rights and political repression. Vietnam has restricted human rights in their country, and as for the record, it remains dire in virtually all areas with widespread harassment and digital surveillance. Communist Party of Vietnam deemed that the freedom of association, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, and the right to a healthy environment is unacceptable. For example, Vietnamese authorities continue to use tough national security laws to punish any critics the regime, which make no freedom of expression. Even the official media has remained tightly controlled by the government by doing censorship and obstruction on what to cover. The last disadvantage of Vietnam being a communist country is political repression. It happened because Vietnam is a country of systematically suppresses basic civil and political rights. As everyone knows, citizens have no right to vote for or right to government service. The ruling Communist Party maintains a monopoly on political power and allow no change to its leadership. Also, the police regularly use torture and beatings to extract confessions. The criminal justice system, including the courts, lacks independence. For example, sentencing political dissidents and civil society activists to long prison terms on bogus national security charge.
In Vietnam, the human rights issues are also one of the most popular problems in the country. These issues had arisen a long time ago, and even when years had passed, the issues were becoming worse. This is due to the corruption that happened among the politicians and the governors. This had caused the citizens to bear the consequences for what the political parties have done. One of the problems of human rights issues is the freedom of expression, opinion, and speech. Online opponents had faced a routine harassment and intimidation since 2020 through their social media and other social networking sites. Several were arrested and charged under Vietnam's Penal Code, which criminalizes speech critical of the government or which promotes reactionary ideas. Government also had prosecuted numerous government opponents throughout the year. In 2019, police arrested Nguyen Thong Tuy in May and Lee Hu Min Tuan in June for involvement with the Independent Journalists Association of Vietnam
and charged them with anti-state propaganda under Article 117 of the Penal Code. The organization's president, Dr. Pham Chi Tung, was arrested in November, apparently in connection to his vocal opposition to the European Union-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. Between April and August, police arrested 9 other people, including independent blogger Pham Chi Tan, land rights activist Nguyen Thi Tam, and former political prisoner Chan Thi Tu and her sons Tri Va Pong and Tri Va Tu. In October, police arrested prominent rights blogger Pham Duan Tran. All 10 were charged with anti-state propaganda under Article 117 of the Penal Code. Next is the freedom of association and assembly. In this case, prohibitions remain on independent labor unions, human rights organizations, and political parties. Organizers trying to establish union or workers' group face harassment, intimidation, or retaliation from employees and authorities. The authorities require approval for public gathering and systematically refuse permission for meetings, marches, or public gathering they deem to be politically unacceptable. In November 2019, the National Assembly passed a revised labor code effective in January 2021. The new code ostensibly will allow the formation of the Workers' Representation Organization to represent the workers, but such group can only form with the permission of the government and are likely to be tightly controlled. In April, the police arrested former political prisoner Tran Duc Thach for alleged association with a human rights group, the Brotherhood for Democracy. Authorities charged him with subversion under Article 109 of the Penal Code. Another problem in human rights issue that arises is the freedom of religion. The government restricts religious activity through legislation, registration requirements, and surveillance. Religious groups are required to get approval from and register with the government and operate under Government Control Management Board. While authorities allow many government-affiliated churches and pagodas to hold worship services, they ban religious activities that they arbitrarily deem to be contrary to the national interest, public order, or national unity, including many ordinary types of religious functions. Police monitor, harass, and sometimes violently crack down on religious groups operating outside government-controlled institutions. Unrecognized religious groups, including Chao Dai, Hau Hau, Christian and Buddhist groups, face constant surveillance, harassment, and intimidation. Followers of independent religious groups are subject to public criticism, forced renunciation of faith, detention, interrogation, torture, and imprisonment.
Lastly, let's move to the aspect of Vietnam's economy. We are going to discuss about the Doi Moi policy. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, Doi Moi policy is an economic reform program carried out by Vietnam after they experienced a serious economic crisis. One of the reasons for the crisis was because Vietnam was a communist when the Cold War politics was going on. Therefore, Vietnam was imposed restrictions, embargoes, causing them to face difficulties in conducting trade. However, these are the effect on Vietnam from the year 2018 to 2022 after the implementation of the policy. In 2018, Vietnam gross domestic product (GDP) has increased to 2.6% at its first year's implementation, which is 1986 to 7.1%. In Global Economic Prospect reported that Vietnam is one of the countries in East Asia with real GDP growth more than 6%. But sadly, people in Vietnam still live in poverty. In the year of 2022, the economic growth of Vietnam has reached 8%. This is due to the after effect of the slowdown that occurred in 2021 due to the COVID-19 disease outbreak. At the time, Vietnam's economy was at lowest at 2.56%. However, the effect of pro-COVID-19 are retail sales increased to 17.1%, manufacturing export increased to 8.1%, and the agricultural sector increased to 3.4%. Anyhow, on the other side, the employment and labor market participation also increased from 2021 to 2022. It showed that the unemployment rate decreased from 3.7% to 2.1%. Also, labor force participation increased from 67.7% to 68.9%. But despite that, in 2023, Vietnam is expected to reach 6.5%, said the financial expert. Andrew Jeffrey, Vietnam's country director, said Vietnam may face some constraints due to the global economic recession. but Vietnam can overcome it with the help of support from the amount of public investment to be released in conjunction with China's reopening. Also, increase agricultural production and domestic demand. As a conclusion, we can see that Vietnam has its own unique system to rule the country, different from Malaysia. Also, they are able to find solutions to overcome the country problem with the help of their experts. Other than that, there are some positive and negative things that can be took by Malaysia as lessons in the process of developing the country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.